Carl Jung's near-death experience, the view from space. Imagine a view of Earth that no human eye had yet witnessed. Not from a rocket, not from a satellite, but from a vantage point 1,000 miles above the planet. You see the globe, a magnificent sphere bathed in a glorious, silvery blue light. Below you, the continents are spread out like a map. The reddish-yellow expanse of the Arabian desert, the deep blue of the Indian Ocean, and the snow-capped peaks of the Himalayas, all visible in a single, breathtaking glance. This was the vision of a man lying in a Swiss hospital bed in 1944, a man who had just suffered a heart attack and was, by all medical accounts, hanging on the very edge of death. That man was Carl Gustav Jung, the pioneering psychiatrist who had spent his life mapping the inner cosmos of the human soul. But now, he was mapping the outer cosmos, and what he found there would redefine his understanding of life, death, and the nature of reality itself. The year was 1944. Europe was consumed by the final, brutal years of the Second World War, and Jung, then 68, was facing his own private war. It began with a broken foot, a simple misstep that confined him to a hospital bed. But the physical trauma was quickly compounded by a severe heart attack. For weeks, Jung's life was measured in the rhythmic hiss of an oxygen mask and the desperate injections of camphor. He was in a state of semi-consciousness, a liminal space where the boundaries between delirium and vision dissolved. His nurse, a woman who had seen many pass, later remarked that he seemed to be surrounded by a bright glow, a phenomenon she associated with the dying. Jung himself felt he had reached the outermost limit. He was no longer just a man. He was a consciousness ascending. The ascent, 1,000 miles, up Jung's account of his near-death experience, detailed in his memoir, Memories, Dreams, Reflections, is remarkable for its precision and its profound lack of sentimentality. It reads less like a spiritual revelation and more like a piece of high-end factual reporting. He calculated his altitude at roughly 1,000 miles, a distance that would not be confirmed by human travel for another decade and a half. From this height, he felt an overwhelming sense of detachment. The Earth was not a home, but a beautiful, shimmering object. His gaze was drawn to the Indian subcontinent, a region that had always held a deep, symbolic fascination for him. He saw the world not as a collection of nations or conflicts, but as a single, unified organism. It was a vision of totality, a perspective that dwarfed the concerns of his professional life and the global conflict raging below. The destination, the stone temple. After contemplating the earth, Jung turned his attention to a new sight, a colossal, dark block of stone floating in space, roughly the size of his house. It was a meteorite, but it was also a temple, hollowed out of tawny granite, reminiscent of the rock-cut temples he had studied in India and Ceylon. As he approached, he saw a small antechamber. Inside, a black Hindu sat silently in the lotus posture, awaiting him. This figure, a symbol of the East's ancient wisdom, seemed to guard the entrance to the temple proper, which was framed by countless tiny oil lamps, a wreath of bright, but the most profound part of the journey occurred just before the entrance. Jung felt a process he described as a sloughing away. Everything he had ever wished for, aimed at, or thought, the entire phantasmagoria of earthly existence, was stripped from him. It was an extremely painful process, a total annihilation of the ego. Yet, something remained, his history. Jung is quoted, "It was as if I now carried along with me everything I had ever experienced or done, everything that had happened around me. I might also say it was with me, and I was it. I consisted of all that, so to speak. I consisted of my own history, and I felt with great certainty, this is what I am." I am this bundle of what has been and what has been accomplished. He was reduced to his essential self, a bundle of pure, objective history. This was the ultimate individuation, a state of extreme poverty, yet simultaneously of great fullness. He was certain that inside the temple, he would finally understand the historical nexus of his life, the beginning, the end, and the purpose of his existence. Just as he was about to step across the threshold, a new image rose from the direction of Europe. It was his doctor, Dr. Theodor Hemmer, or rather, his likeness, framed by a golden chain or a laurel wreath. Jung instantly recognized him, not as the man who administered the injections, but in his primal form, as a Basileus of Kos, a king or avatar from the island of Hippocrates, the ancient father of medicine. A silent telepathic exchange took place. Dr. Hemmer, delegated by the earth itself, delivered a message. Jung had no right to leave. He had to return. The vision instantly ceased. Jung was back in his body, back in the hospital bed, and consumed by a profound, bitter disappointment. The painful process of self-stripping had been in vain. He was not allowed to enter the illuminated room. He felt he was being forced back into what he called the box system, the artificial, three-dimensional world where each person sits alone in a little box. Life and the world now struck him as a prison. It took him 3 long weeks to reconcile himself to the idea of living again. The irony of the experience is as sharp as any Greek tragedy. Dr. Hemmerle, the man who had appeared as the divine messenger of life, fell ill shortly after Jung's recovery. Jung, still convalescing, had a vision of his doctor's death. A few days later, Dr. Hemmerle died. Jung felt that the doctor had been given the choice to live or die, and had taken Jung's place, a profound synchronicity that cemented the reality of the vision for him. Jung's near-death experience was not a footnote, it was a cornerstone. It provided empirical confirmation for his life's work. The bundle of history he became was the ultimate expression of the collective unconscious, the repository of all human experience. The vision of the temple and the Hindu confirmed his belief in the unity of all spiritual traditions. He returned to the world with a renewed, almost frantic energy, convinced of the reality of the soul and the objective existence of the psyche beyond the body. The experience fueled his most complex and profound later works. Carl Jung's journey to the edge of death did not end his inquiry into the human condition. It simply moved the goalposts. He proved, to himself at least, that the psyche is not merely a product of the brain, but a vast, timeless entity that can, and does, look back at the earth from 1,000 miles away. And for a man who had dedicated his life to exploring the unknown depths of the mind, this was the ultimate, undeniable truth. I hope you enjoyed this brief talk. Please like and subscribe. If people are interested, I can provide other videos on this subject.